Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to the third part of this animation nodes tutorial series. In this part, we will be taking what we learned last time when we made the cube spin in order to make 3 different gears of different sizes move in time with each other. So the first step of this tutorial is going to be building the actual gears. Now, thankfully, Blender has a built-in add-on that we just have to enable that will allow us to easily create these gears. So I'm going to go up to File, User Preferences, and under the Add-ons tab, I'm going to go to Add Mesh, and Add Mesh Extra Objects. I'm going to tick that, and I'm going to exit out. And now if I hit Shift A, go under Mesh, go under the Gears tab, I can add in a gear. Now if I hit F6 to bring up the menu, you can see we have a few options for these gears. The two ones we're going to be messing with today are the number of teeth and the radius, because those are going to be important when we start doing the math in order to make them all spin at the same speed. So the first one I'm just going to leave at default, 12 teeth and a radius of 1. I'm going to drag that off a little bit to the side. The next one I'm going to add, I'm going to make that 6 teeth with a radius of 0.5. Whoops, I messed that one up. 6 teeth, not 5. I'm going to drag that over as well. And then the third one I'm going to add, I'm going to F6 to bring up that menu again. I'm going to add 18 teeth with a radius of 1.5. And I'm going to line those up. If you want to rotate these gears to line them up with each other, it's important to remember that you shouldn't do this in object mode. You should go into edit mode first and rotate them. Because if you do it in object mode, that rotation will be reset once we start actually working with animation nodes. But now that we have our gears created, I'm going to drag up the timeline window, and I'm going to change that to our node editor and add in a new animation nodes node tree. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of our gears. It doesn't matter which one's which. I'm going to select this one on the left, and I'm going to go over to the object panel. I'm going to rename that as drive, because you always have a drive gear and a driven gear. So this one is going to drive the other 2 gears and actually make them move. So with that, I'm going to now go to our animation nodes window, hit Shift A, add in an object node, eyedrop our drive gear, and then duplicate that 2 more times, and eyedrop our other 2 gears to bring them into animation nodes. And then I'm going to hit Shift A, add in a transform input and a transform output. And I'm going to connect the transform input to our drive gear. And then I'm going to connect the transform output to gear number 1, which is this small gear in the middle. And I'm going to enable the Z rotation and add in a separate Euler and a combine Euler. And connect that up, like so. And now I can take our Z rotation of our drive gear and plug it into the Z rotation of gear number 1. And now if I rotate the drive gear, you can see they both rotate, but we're running into some problems. So first off, they're both rotating the same way. They should be rotating an opposite way. So in order to fix that, I'm going to add in a math node and multiply it by -1. And now they're both rotating the opposite directions, but the teeth are kind of phasing into each other, and we really don't want that. We want them interlocking. So in order to do that, we use a math formula. Now this formula, if you've ever taken an engineering class, you've probably used it. It's simply the number of teeth of the driven gear divided by the number of teeth of the drive gear. And that's how we figure out the speed ratio that the 2 gears should be spinning. So in order to implement this into animation nodes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this math node, bring it up here, and I'm going to change this to divide. And I'm going to divide the amount of teeth of the drive gear, which is 12, and I'm going to divide that by 6. I know it's backwards, but it has to be backwards in animation nodes. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it one more time, change it to multiply, and I'm going to drag that in the middle so that we're multiplying the Z value of the drive gear by the output of that math formula. And now if I rotate the drive gear, nothing happens. Whoops, I have to, when I dragged it in, it changed the input of the math node, so I want that to be in the first. So that way we're still multiplying by -1. So now this should work. If I rotate the drive gear, you can see that the second gear rotates perfectly in time with the smaller gear. And now we can do the same thing with our third gear. So in order to do this, I'm going to drag in this object input. I'm going to drag it over to the right side of the screen under the object transform. And then I'm going to select all of our nodes other than the 2 object input nodes, and I'm going to Shift D and drag those over. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the object output of our second gear transformation, and then I'm going to connect that into the new object transform input. And connect the object input into the transform output that we just duplicated. So now I have to change these to match our new gear ratio. So the middle gear has now become our drive gear, so I'm going to change that to 6. And then our last gear has 18 teeth, so I'm going to enter that in. And now if I rotate the third gear, all 3 gears should move in time with each other. And this is infinitely scalable. You can add 1,000 gears and it'll still work. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and I hope you learned from it. I hope it's making animation nodes make a little bit more sense. In the next part of this series, we will be going over loops and how to make arrays of objects. So I will see you next time.
Don't be afraid, I'll be the one to guide you through this endless maze.